The Fairmile B motor launch was a type of motor launch built by British boat builder Fairmile Marine during the Second World War for the Royal Navy, for coastal operations. Design. While the Type A had been designed entirely by Fairmile, the Type B design had come from Bill Holt of the Admiralty based on the lines of a destroyer hull, and the detailed design and production was taken on by Fairmile. Like all the designs, it was based on total prefabrication, so individual components could be contracted out to small factories for production, and these arranged as kits that would be delivered to various boatyards for assembly and fitting out. Altogether, approximately 650 boats were built between 1940 and 1945. Like the A-type, the B-type were initially intended as submarine chasers, so the boats were fitted with Aztec as standard. The main armament initially reflected their anti-submarine focus, with 12 depth charges of single QF 3-pounder Hotchkiss gunner, and one set of twin 0.303-in machine guns. The specifications given are for the original 1940 British version. As the war moved on, the vessels were adapted to other roles and the armament was modified and upgraded, such as the replacement of the 3-pounder with one or more 20mm, a Lycon cannon. Some boats were configured as motor torpedo boats. Service. The first Fairmile B motor launch was completed in September 1940, with a further 38 from the first two production batches entering service before the end of the year. All boats were essentially the same, although they could be adapted to serve in several roles by the expedient of having pre-drilled rails on the deck space to allow the fitting of various types of armaments. Although their armament initially reflected the main anti-submarine mission, 9 of them were fitted with 21-inch torpedo tubes taken from ex-US Town-class destroyers. They formed the 2nd ML flotilla tasked with anti-invasion duty until the threat had passed. During the Siege of Malta, they were successfully employed as minesweepers, as the larger specialist craft were too vulnerable to air attack. A number served in the St. Nazaire raid as assault transports, but the light construction meant that they suffered heavily. 12 B motor launchers were lost in the action out of 16 deployed. Many were later converted to rescue motor launchers with small sickbays aft of the funnel, and several more were converted to use as War Office ambulance launchers with larger sickbays. Canada built 80 boats. These were built in 13 different boatyards to slightly different specifications and used as escort vessels. 8 of these were built by LeBlanc for the Royal Navy. These 8 boats were transferred under Lend-Lease to the U.S. Navy, because U.S. coastal protection had been depleted by transferring ships to the Royal Navy for convoy work. The U.S. Navy used them as submarine chasers until the forces could be built up. There are 2 surviving examples on the west coast of Canada serving as party charter vessels. New Zealand built 12 boats. These were used in New Zealand waters and around the Solomon Islands, and included HMNZS Maori and Kahu. At least 6 boats were built by South Africa and commissioned during November 1942. These were sent as the 49th Fairmile Flotilla to Burma and deployed along the Arakan coast. The boats saw much action in support of ground forces and disrupting Japanese supply lines. The Imperial Japanese Navy salvaged 2 that had been sunk and placed them in service. A number of boats were built in Egypt by Thomas Cook and Amp Son, who had a Cairo shipyard for constructing Nile tourist craft. Armament was fitted in Port Said. The first three to enter service in 1942 were MLs 355, 353 and 348. Post-war they were often taken on as pleasure boats, and a number of Fairmile Bs are on the National Register of Historic Vessels. 14 Fairmile B were operated by the Italian Guardia di Finanza Naval Service between 1947 and the 1980s. 4 currently survive in the UK, 2 of which are in excellent condition. One is RML 497. Many others of the type are known to survive around the world, some still in commercial service as tour boats.